This is Creative Banter. Sparked by an hour-long walk, Ben and I discuss the importance of routine and the creation of a daily schedule. Though it may seem odd to plan out your day to the hour, is it really all that different from what we do when we work for someone else? Not to mention, it may actually help us to feel better both mentally and physically, while also becoming a bit more productive. Let's dive right into this, shall we?
So I wanted to extend my Spandex awareness to public transportation this past, yesterday really. Because it occurred to me that the route that I like to go cycling and the one that I'll eventually do for the 100 miles, it basically parallels light rail and then like a train service like the entire way.
Okay.
To the point where I'm not that far from, so our light rail, we call it the San Diego trolley. And so I'm not too far from that. And so I could ride my bike to get on on one of the train stops. And then that takes me basically toward the coast. And then it goes up the coast and goes down the coast a little ways. But then at some point there's more of an actual commuter train that runs up and down the coast. And in the turnaround spot for when I eventually do that 100-mile ride, there's a train stop right there. And so I was thinking, like, why don't I take advantage of the rail service and combine that with the cycling? Because it would allow me to vary how far I want to ride for a particular day. And so I decided to take the trolley down to the coast and then ride up to Carlsbad and back. So that was like 62 miles, and then take the trolley back to where I live. I'm like, wow, this is good, because otherwise I would end up, like driving to the coast and then, using all the gas to get there and back. And so I'm like, oh, this actually is pretty convenient. And it has the advantage of, I don't have to, end my ride at the exact same station I started at. I can, keep going, heading, further inland or wherever, and kind of vary the route. So just one fun thing to kind of work into my routine is combining the rail service with the bike and the Spandex. And the nice thing is you don't really have to talk to anyone in the trolley, because they all talk to themselves. So there's that. But no, we've actually got a pretty good system here. And between the bike paths and then the light rail. So that was my adventure yesterday, and worked out pretty well. So I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's got to be nice. I can't say that I've ever been on a train or a trolley or even subway, any of that stuff. At least not. Perhaps when I was much, much younger, like my parents had me on like the what is that? It's Thomas the Tank Engine. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
On like something like that down in like Lancaster or something. But past that, I can't say I've ever been on anything like that.
Yeah, and it works out pretty well for the bike. I mean, I just looked at the rules in terms of, where you're supposed to be and all the stuff along those lines. But it works out really well because, let's say that I'm, at about the 50-mile mark, I'm halfway there through my 100-mile ride at my turnaround point, and something happens to my bike or whatever. It's like, well, I just hop on the train and take it, within, not too far from where I live. So it gives that backup plan, but also just the ability to vary things up. Like, oh, I still got more energy, so I'm just going to keep going another 20 miles or so, and catch the trolley at a stop further away. So I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me, but I'm like, oh, this is actually a pretty good combo, covers multiple bases, and allows for more Spandex in public. So that was pretty good.
So you benefit, and everyone else just gets to be tormented by seeing you in
Everyone
Spandex.
else benefits. Yes.
I was going to say, not everybody benefits. Let's be honest.
I don't know. I don't know. But I wear the Spandex for me, not for other people.
Okay.
I just want to just put that out there. Yeah.
Whatever makes you feel better about it, Ben.
It does. That's all I have. Yeah.
I wish we had more public transport across the country. That's, like we've talked about before a little bit. That's the one thing that America is massively lacking in. And that's, I think, largely because of how expansive the country is and how expansive each state is compared to how it is over in like Europe and other countries. But it would be really nice. Like even the closest train, like obviously I could go down to Philly and ride the subways in Philly if I really felt that I really needed to experience that, but that might get a little sketchy. But there is a train up in Jim Thorpe, which is in the Poconos area of Pennsylvania. And it's actually a dog-friendly train, and it takes you around. And it's something that I plan on doing this spring or summer, just because it's only like 45, maybe an hour away. Something new to experience with my girlfriend and with Emmy. But other than that, there's no way. Like, if I decide to go for a bike ride, it's all me. And if I get stuck somewhere, then I guess I'm Ubering home or just praying.
That's what I was wondering about. Like, I don't even know if there's like, if you call an Uber, like, is there a way to like say, hey, you got like a bike rack or somewhere to put a bike at? Because in most cases, it's just like a smaller car. You're not necessarily fitting a bike in there. And, you know, you don't want to be like messing up someone's upholstery with just like grease or whatever. So I've always wondered what the backup plan would be, you know, in those kind of scenarios, other than, you know, calling someone, you know, or whatever. Yeah,
I didn't even think about that too. Yeah, you'd have to almost do like, what is it, the Uber X or something, where it's like the the larger, guaranteed larger vehicle, and then just hope, and just leave your bike there and walk there the next time. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That won't end well for the bike.
No, not at all.
No. And also, this is now the second full week I've been doing the little plant-based experiment. And it was also interesting looking at the stats from yesterday's ride and realizing that I've not taken any, the performance level has not taken a hit at all. In fact, I was actually faster on a lot of sections on this ride than I was on past ones, which I know also could be attributed to just like, you know, muscles developing and stuff just over time and all that sort of stuff anyways. But just the fact that, you know, didn't take a hit on any of the endurance or anything like that. So that's also a good little further proof of the little plant-based experiment I'm doing.
Yeah, but I also wonder, to be on the other side of things here, I also wonder how fast is that any sort of like detriment going to start to show up? Like I can't.
Yeah, you think it would take a while if there's something that I was getting from the animal based stuff that takes a while for it to
burn off, wear off, and disappear.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't think you would see any true major differences in a 2-week span, let alone a 1 month or maybe even 2 month span. I could imagine that it would take at least 2 months, 3 months for certain things to start to wear off from having had a diet of animal protein and such for so long. But then again, I'm not a scientist. So for all I know, it could be a week or 2 weeks that everything starts to wear off. But
yeah, and in that Netflix thing that we talked about a couple episodes back, it was over the course of 8 weeks. And at that point, they were starting to notice some changes in the body and the fat levels and muscle and all kinds of stuff like that. So obviously this is very early into it, but it was nice to have the confirmation that I'm not doing this to my own detriment in terms of like performance. And actually when it comes to the cycling, the stuff that I love is the kind of the long flat stretches where you can just hunker down and just pedal away. And actually on some of those of the according to the Strava app, of the roughly 100 or so people that had cycled that route that day, there was a few of those long straight stretches where I was like, there was a few where I was the first, and then I was typically within the top 10 for a lot of the other ones. But once you start climbing, I'm not a fast climber, so I'd be like middle of the pack maybe or so. But it is kind of interesting to have those numbers to just kind of see where you're sitting in comparison.
Yeah. Speaking on exercise and all of that, I actually got back from just taking about an hour-long walk. Around 3 o'clock, I got back to the house because today it's such a shitty day outside. It's rainy, it's on and off, and it's foggy, just overly warm for the end of January. It's a very weird day, and the past few days especially, I've just been feeling very like on edge, very down in the dumps, unmotivated, just not that great.
It's kind of the seasonal affected thing as well, perhaps?
Yeah, that definitely plays a part in it. And this weather, Pennsylvania weather is always flipping and flopping all over the place. It's like a fish out of water. It's terrible. Like last week we were in the 30s and low 20s with snowstorms and all that. And then all of a sudden it switched this weekend and we started to get a bit of rain, and now we're up in the 50s and low or mid 30s. It's not, and my mental well-being and everything just is very easily affected by the shifts in the weather. And I think that goes for quite a lot of people, to be honest. But that seasonal affective disorder is definitely playing part here. And so I was just, it's led to a lot of screen time, a lot of just working on the computer, but not really doing anything. And so I decided today, I'm like, all right, the Lucy and Emmy are tired enough. I'm going to put them in their crate for now. I'm going to grab my Rico and I'm going to go for a walk for like an hour because
it kind of gives it a little bit of a change of mindset. That seems like that could be a good thing.
Yeah. So plus I needed that alone time, just myself, where I could just think. I could kind of have that solace. The rain had paused for quite a bit of time, so I didn't have to worry about getting absolutely drenched. So I went for a walk and I had my phone with me, and I had my Apple Watch with me, but I just used the watch for tracking, didn't touch my phone. And I took 9 photographs on the Ricoh. I kind of put a hard cap at 9. Kind of like just a film mentality, being mindful of what I'm photographing, that kind of thing. Because I didn't want to get lost in photographing everything as an excuse and then, again, be behind technology kind of deal. Yeah. So, like I said, about an hour, about 3 miles, and it was definitely needed. It was one of those things that I got back, and during it and afterwards, even now, I feel better than I have all week in terms of, because I was able to get outside for the first time and truly enjoy being outside for the first time in a while.
And have that connection with the outdoors and nature and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though it was just walking the back roads around my house and nothing like super dense in the woods or anything like that, it was still a matter of being outside and just enjoying the sounds of the birds as they're chirping along and all of that. So all of that kind of got me thinking about daily schedules, and especially because, and we've talked in a previous episode a little while back, of the simple fact that when we are working from home, when we're stuck in the house a lot, we often don't find ourselves interacting with other people. We lose that sort of companionship that we often get. And we also lose routine, because most of the days we might have a lot to do one day and then nothing to do the next, and everything's all over the place. And so I started thinking about daily schedule and what I can do with that. And I think for the month of February, I'm going to implement a daily schedule that is going to implement going to the gym every day again, at least during the weekdays, and as well as going for at least an hour-long walk, probably with Emmy in the mornings every morning, just as a way to get out there. And on top of that, my morning schedule, I'm going to block out as being very sacred, away from technology, because now I find myself in the mornings, I'll wake up, I'll take Emmy out, I'll grab my phone, and as my girlfriend's getting ready for work, I'll play on my phone until I fall back to sleep again. I'm like, I don't want to be doing that. So I have everything kind of blocked out in a way that hour-long blocks for certain things. And then the afternoons, just blocking out until I think I have 5 o'clock or so right now, where I'm just doing a mix of an hour of work for NPN, an hour of personal work, whether it's writing or editing photos or something. and then obviously an hour for either therapy or for these conversations, stuff like that. So I have a feeling that it's going to be very beneficial for me, if only that it provides me again with that routine, with some sort of consistency through the day, some sort of purpose throughout the day that I don't currently have, because now most days I'll bounce from one thing to the next very haphazardly, and a lot of the times I'm not doing anything at all that's terribly productive. So yeah, I mean, that's everything that's on my mind right now because of it being so fresh. So
yeah, I think that'll be good. I mean, because like if I think about let's say after, because I've made a point of not really doing any work on the weekend, because I just want to keep those days as just days to not do work. You know, I'll do yard work, I'll do stuff like that, but then ultimately I usually have some things that build up that I need to get done on a Monday. And so oftentimes I'll have like this list of all of these things I need to do on a Monday. Very productive. Then Tuesday falls off a little bit. I catch up on some of the stuff that I didn't quite finish up on Monday. But then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are a blur, because I don't really have that sense of purpose as much, and I don't really have a schedule or anything that I'm sticking to, because I just try to get as much of that stuff done on that Monday. And I think that blur of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think I fall into a little bit of what you're describing along those lines. And I was just thinking the other day that I really should just make a point of doing something more on those days, scheduling stuff in terms of like, okay, well, let's say Wednesday I'll go to the gym and do arms or something like that. And just kind of work that in, because I do miss that from when I was working at the shop, having that sense of routine, that sense of schedule. But there's also something else that I had heard on the radio a little while back. They're talking about how there are some companies that have been experimenting with the 4-day work week, and about how, that all has proven to be just as efficient in the long run as the 5-day work week. And what they're saying is that on average, when people go to more of an office environment, they might be there for 8 hours a day, but they're working for 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you were just talking about, the schedule of working stuff up, there are 2 hours there that you had kind of, reserved for, getting various work things done, and another one that can kind of go that way. So it seems like you were crafting things around a little bit of kind of that ideal amount of time to actually focus and to get that sort of work done. Because I know that I'm not good. If I just have to sit and work for 8 hours or whatever, it doesn't go well. I'm not built for that. I have to find some excuse to go outside and like water things, or do some outdoor sort of stuff and get that dose of outdoor time. But I do think that if you stick to that schedule, it does sound like you're going to be setting yourself up for some degree of success from that, just because it's following along with what really tends to be what we're built for,
Yeah. I mean, the general schedule that I figured out would be, and this is obviously rough because I'm just thought of it while I was walking, but something along the lines of taking a walk with Emmy from like 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning, then going to the gym by 8:30, working out till 9:30, home by 10. And then from 10 to 11, I would journal, because that's something that I want to get into a daily habit of again, because I did that again last night, and the ability to just write freely about whatever is very beneficial for me. And then having from 11 to 12 or even 11 to 1, depending, just that block of time where I can just read. And whether it's reading something like T-Bot or something that's more nonfiction and a little bit more dense or whatever, or even a fiction book, reading something that is very... that I'm very purposeful about, very mindful about what I'm reading, not just articles online or anything. And then really having that chunk of the morning where I'm not in front of a screen, not in front of technology, not picking up my phone unless it's for like at the gym for Spotify or for...
selfies.
Yeah, selfies, of course, right. And then in the afternoon, having from like 12 to 1, where then I can start answering emails, because a lot of my work with the magazine is emails. Having that hour block, then having an hour block after that of either doing personal work or working on any reviews or article reviews, any writing stuff that I have to do with NPN, and then going through the rest of the day until 5, chunking off hour blocks for different stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just think like it sounds weird to me to feel like I have to do this and have to put a schedule together, but like you were saying, we almost have that when you work a traditional job anyway. Like
yeah, for sure.
You're expected to be somewhere from, I don't know, the typical 9 to 5, and you're allowed a lunch break at 12 from 12 to 1, and that's your day. And then you get home and then you have to do whatever else you want to do. So it makes sense. And again, with the 4-day work week, there's countless studies that show, and even just working every day, you can tell you don't get like anything done over those 8 hours. Like the amount of time that you are just mindlessly in meetings or scrolling through it, through your phone or slacking off or talking at the water cooler or whatever, it really shows that you only get 3 to 4 hours of work done each day, if that.
Yeah. I mean, you should have seen the rubber band ball that I made when I worked at the camera store, because we'd always have rubber bands, like so many things that we, products and stuff, they would come rubber banded together or whatever. So there's just rubber bands all over the place. Eventually I just started making this giant rubber band ball. That thing took years to make. Yeah. That was just like a monument to working 3 hours a day. But you know, it was different in that sort of job, because obviously, you know, when people come in for stuff, you're there to do stuff, but there's a lot of downtime. And so I think that even in that job, it was probably a good 3 hours of work each day when it really comes down to it, because there's just so much downtime between things that are going on.
Yeah.
And when you'd mentioned, you know, taking an hour to journal, my first thought was like, wow, that's a long time. But then I started thinking like that 1 hour is probably a very good investment in terms of, you know, after that, probably coming up with whatever sort of ideas, you know, whatever, like brainstorming, just like just going into a different mindset that I'm guessing that, you know, coming away from that, it'll probably feel very kind of like refreshed, and maybe a new sense of purpose that would probably lead into the other aspects later that day being perhaps more, I don't know if I want to say productive, but more insightful or whatever. Like it will have a positive impact on the other stuff you do throughout the rest of the day. Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, like I came back from an hour-long walk, and I have all these thoughts brewing in my head around a daily schedule. And if you're doing that every single day, on top of that, you're also going to the gym for an hour or whatever it is, and you're listening to a podcast or to music or just thinking things through, whatever. That's a lot of time there in the morning already that you've just been largely in your head and consuming mindfully, in a sense. And then not to mention the whole afternoon from the previous day, where you may not have had the time to get those thoughts down on paper or think things through. That's a lot of potential content to be writing about in the journal. That an hour really goes by quick, I think.
Yeah, I can definitely see how it would.
So, yeah. So, I mean, in general, I'm thinking do this for February, see how it goes. And I can't imagine that there's going to be any sort of downside to it. I think it's only going to be a positive thing. And at the very least, it should be better for my overall well-being, given that I'll have that morning block where I'm hopefully, the intent there is to not be around screens. The only downside, the only thing that I am thinking about that might screw things up is if by some sort of miracle I get a job. And then everything goes to hell. And of course it would be around.
Well, that would give you your own sort of routine in that way. So either way, you're going to have that schedule. You know,
but I'm thinking that as well with this schedule, especially the like back half of it, where I have those purposeful hour blocks of doing work, that's going to help me to be much more productive in terms of my own writing and getting things out there on a more regular basis. So, like I said, we'll see how it goes. I can't imagine anything bad is going to come of it, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. And actually, the first little bits of the schedule, I mean, it's similar to what I do. I mean, I take Oliver to the dog park most mornings, and he hangs with his buddies there. I come back, and so I'm like, oh, I like the idea of doing the gym after taking Oliver to the dog park. So I may have to copy you on that one, because I've been trying to figure out where to work that into the lineup.
Yeah.
And the other thing about being away from screens and stuff. I was just thinking, I know I've mentioned this in the past, but I was just thinking about how yesterday when I went for that ride, I mean, it was a 5-hour bike ride. It did not feel like 5 hours. It felt like maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It didn't feel like 5 hours. And as I'd mentioned in the past, like I don't have like earbuds in or anything. It's just like, it's just listening to my own thoughts and the sound of the wind, which is, it's also weird because like sometimes I'll get a song in my head. And so I'm like, oh, cool, I got music on this ride. So same song over and over again, but I'm not going to complain. Like I'm not even paying to stream this music. So, there's some advantages to that.
That's funny. That same song comment makes me think of with Ryan Holiday. He's talked about before that when he really gets in the groove of writing or doing certain things, he'll have the same exact song on repeat on his on Spotify or Apple Music, whatever he uses.
Yeah.
So then when he gets like the Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year, it's like you are in the top 0.0001% of the fan base for this artist. Like, yeah, because it's the only song that I listened to for how long?
Yeah, I mean, well, I have a just a playlist in Apple Music that just has like just some decent songs I enjoy, and there's not a lot of songs on that list, and I'll just listen to that one on repeat. There's something kind of nice about that, but I can see how if it's something that just allows you to focus whatever I definitely see how that could be a good thing. Because if things are changing up too much, then it kind of kicks you out of whatever sort of thought process you're in.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I thought about while walking, and particularly around photography and how I was using the Ricoh, because I mentioned I only allowed myself to take 9 photographs with it as a kind of, it was originally going to be 6, and then I took a 7th, and I'm like, okay, 9.
Yeah.
So I could imagine this whole walking daily thing, and if I'm taking my Ricoh with me all the time, because ideally my morning walks would be just my keys, my Apple Watch to track the walk, and then the Ricoh, and every day I would take like 9 photographs or so of the walk. And then I could have a nice little carousel of images to throw onto Instagram or something, just as a documentation of the walk. I could definitely see it shifting my photography a bit and how I use my photography as a way of documenting things versus strictly as a means of sharing what I find meaningful in nature, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I could see there being some sort of change happening there. What exactly it would be, I don't know, but it's something else that was on my mind. So
yeah, you won't really know where that goes until you try that out and figure out where it leads you. But I see how it would be a different aspect of photography. And I think that could be very interesting. Maybe it would just lead you in even a slightly different direction too than you would have originally thought. And that's the fun part about it, because you never quite know where it's going to take you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also I was thinking that, I should probably just take my little RX 100 with me out sometimes just to activate that different way of thinking.
Yeah. I mean, looking through T-Bot especially has shifted my perception of different photography. Like I look at the photographs that Craig shares in his books and everything, and they're by no means these fantastic, like super carefully composed pieces of art that you're going to see in a museum or high-end gallery or anything, but they have their own sort of beauty to them. And there's quite a few flipping through the pages that I would absolutely love to have hanging on my wall that he thinks very little, if nothing at all, about. because he doesn't see himself as a photographer so much as a writer and walker. So I think that has definitely played at least some part in my own perceptions around my photography and everything, and how I could see myself moving forward with my own creative pursuits. But that, again, is something that only time is going to be able to tell.
Yeah, and I wonder how that would be with the approach to photography in that way. Like whether you would see it as, I'm just documenting something, but for those that are viewing it, whether they would see an even greater sense of depth to it. Like I'm kind of wondering what that sort of experience would be like. So like, for example, if I see something that kind of catches my eye, I might take a picture of it with the iPhone, just kind of document it in a way. I don't feel like I'm necessarily creating anything, magnificent from that. It's just, hey, I'm just documenting something. But to the eyes of someone else, whether they see that in a different light based on the presentation and how, if a photo's in a book, that's an elevated presentation, or if it's used somewhere else. So that's the other interesting aspect, to see if it would have a impact on you as a photographer, whether you might not think very much of the images, but based on the presentation, whether other people would really see it in a whole different level than you saw it.
Yeah. I mean, I even thought when I first came across Craig's work and looked through Kisa by Kisa for the first time and everything, and then when I ended up getting the Ricoh as well and playing around with that a little bit, I thought too that I could almost see my photography changing to the point where I just carry around, like, if I ever get the funds to actually get one, like I would love to, a Leica monochrome camera with a basic 50mm lens, and just have that as my kit, and strictly work with that, and almost have a mix of, I guess, following along with how Craig photographs, and just documenting what I see and what I find beautiful in nature, where it's kind of like a totally different approach to what I've done in the past and to what a lot of photographers go through. But yeah, I mean, never know what's going to happen. But maybe one day I'll have enough money from my photography that I can afford to get a Leica, and then we'll see if it works out.
Well, maybe one of the 10 listeners happens to be an executive at Leica.
Yeah, maybe.
In which case, I would like to second everything you said, and I also would like that to be a part of my existence. So,
wouldn't it be nice? Except I think you would probably go with the M11, and I would go with the M11 monochrome, because I can't really see you going black and white fully. You've already tried that a little bit, and hasn't seemed to stick very well.
It hasn't stuck yet. I still need to continue to work with that. I think that will need to be a project I continue to work with to get a feeling for everything. I've got some of the practice down, but I just need to dedicate, whether it's a going on a dedicated trip and doing only black and white, but it'd have to be a trip that's not associated with my other stuff. So yeah, I see possibility, like a summertime thing or something.
I could even see you, because you mentioned about taking your your little Sony with you.
Yeah,
I could even see if you would just do something as basic as that. The photographs that you take on the Sony are black and white, and have that as more of like a starting point, because there's no pressure. It's not like you're wasting film. You're not wasting development time or anything like that. And you can be much more free with it to see what works in black and white versus what isn't going to. So I could definitely see you doing that. I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I really should just bring that camera along. We'd just go cycling or something like that. Just different mindset, various things I see out there. It'll have to be all stuff that's right off the road, and perhaps the road itself, stuff.
Yeah, but I mean,
stuff I wouldn't have to go very far. But
I mean,
actually
on my walk, like out of the 9 frames that I took, every single one was like just about right outside of me or right off the side of the road. I think the one photograph that I took is just a open pack of Marlboro cigarettes on the ground with a stick over them, and there were 3 cigarettes that were left behind. And it's just like photographs of litter like that. Like just as much a reminder of the next time I go for a walk, I should really bring a trash bag with me and like some gloves or something so I could pick up trash and do something good for the world. But also because there's a sort of like beauty in that, as weird as that seems. But yeah, I mean,
well, it's because you see something like that and you think there's a story to it. Like, why would someone just drop that there where it is?
Why 3 cigarettes? Like, why didn't you? Yeah. Why did you stop at 3? Like, why not just finish off the pack and then get rid of it? Like, but
it could have been that was the very moment the person decided to stop smoking.
Yeah,
you never know. They could be like, all right, I'm done with these. I'm not going to stop littering, but I'm going to stop smoking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Toward the end of last week's episode, we mentioned starting a new feature talking about various artists and photographers and stuff that we've run across and that are inspiring and such. So I do have a person for this week. So I don't know exactly how it was that I found out about her, but through Instagram, Brittany Colt. And I think that is her username here. Let's head it up here. Yes. So just Brittany Colt is her username. And so she lives in the Eastern Sierra. Beautiful work, both color and black and white. I think you in particular will enjoy the black and white. And looks like she was originally from Oregon, and then she moved down here to California, worked at the Ansel Adams Gallery in Yosemite as a staff photographer, then later ran the education department and acted as the education coordinator. But really beautiful work, both color and black and white. Some of it is the human element and some of it is just nature, but absolutely stunning work. And so I don't really know exactly how it was that I was introduced to her work, but I saw her posting something earlier this week and I'm like, this is a great candidate. Very, very jealous of pretty much every photo she takes. So definitely a fantastic artist.
Yeah.
And I would recommend following her for sure.
Yeah. I'm on her website now too. And she has a series of photographs called Nature's Daughters, Embracing the Sacred Bond, which is very intimate, very beautiful series. She actually has she's showing her works at Viewpoint Photographic Art Center from January 10th to February 3rd. Not exactly sure where that is in your area there or her area, but yeah, she has a lot of really nice work on here.
Yeah, there's this one in particular. It's a black and white. Looks like she posted it April 12th of 2023. It's a white snowy scene with this dark river that's meandering through it and then kind of splits off. And there's this little bit of light shining off the water kind of on the front left side. But really, really beautiful. That's like that's just top level work right there. But for a photographer to have an eye both for color and for black and white, and also for the human element, that's a pretty broad range, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I usually wait for people to get out of my photos. So I'm not so good with the human element side of things.
Yeah, that's true. But no, yeah, definitely recommend checking out her work. I'll have a link in the show notes to both her. I'll just throw her Instagram on there because her website is linked up. But yeah, definitely a solid choice. Yeah.
And I figure throughout these the podcast episodes as we record them here, you usually just browsing through Instagram, I usually stumble across people that are like, oh wow, this is fantastic work. So I do appreciate the suggestion of us adding a segment where we talk about other photographers, because I think that's just a good way of discovering new people. I hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.